watching a global celebration of all things Notre Dame, where we invite you to watch, connect, give, and vote. This is Notre Dame Day, live from the LaFortune Student Center.
And welcome back once again to Notre Dame Day. And if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to our 27th hour of Notre Dame Day, a 29-hour global celebration in its entirety of the University of Notre Dame. Well, if you've been watching since yesterday, thanks for tuning in, and we promise you that this hour's broadcast, will be superlative. We have some great people lined up. My name is Gary Sieber. I'm a 1981 grad of Notre Dame, four-year resident of Cavanaugh Hall, and joining me, my cohort, my former co-anchor on Saturday morning on WNDU, Jack Nolan.
And as you can see, he has worn me down. The anchor dress code was business casual. I didn't have a tie.
You brought your tie.
So I've got my Notre Dame gold tie on now, just like Saturday morning.
Hey, I wrote you a poem.
We can have tie wars. You did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This was from a couple of hours ago.
I bet it has something to do with Red Sox.
It's nice to hear that Trent Dilfer thinks Malik is a Renaissance man. Our show's really rolling, but only Jack Nolan would think he said Red Sox fan.
All right. Trent Dilfer was on the phone. The phone call broke up.
Oh, sure.
I heard
the phone.
Red Sox fan. And then I asked Malik, and he looked at me like, you're a crazy person.
Renaissance
man. It was Renaissance Red Sox fan, but those of us who are and there's many of us at Notre Dame, we hear Red Sox everywhere.
Of course you do.
And this year, since they're playing the way they are, we're not going to hear them well. But we do have a show to get to, and we're going to get to it right now. We're here at LaFortune Student Center on the Notre Dame campus. It's just a few yards away from the university's main building and its iconic Golden Dome. This will be our broadcast headquarters for the next 3 hours as we celebrate all things Notre Dame with students, parents, friends, fans from all around the world. We thank you very much for joining us today.
Yep, and we're going to toss it out to, who are we going to here?
Well, we're going to go live right now to Catherine Dudas, who's on the steps of Notre Dame's main building, where some really interesting stuff is going on.
Take it away.
Thanks so much, Jack. I'm standing here under the Golden Dome, and joining me is the Dean of Notre Dame's Graduate School, Professor Laurel Carlson. Thanks so much for joining me, Dean Carlson.
Thank you. Happy Notre Dame Day. My name is Laura Carlson. I'm a professor in psychology, and I serve as Vice President, Associate Provost, and Dean of the Graduate School. I'm standing out here on a lovely April evening at the steps of the main building. The fifth floor in the main building houses the Graduate School and the Office for Postdoctoral Scholars. I'm really excited to introduce the Graduate School segment for ND Day. The mission of the Graduate School is to promote a graduate community that positions all scholars for success. And what a vibrant and diverse community we have. Did you know graduate and professional students and postdoctoral scholars constitute nearly 1/3 of the student body at Notre Dame? Graduate students and postdoctoral scholars form the foundation of our research enterprise. In this segment, we celebrate their significant and inspiring accomplishments and their contributions by showing you highlights from this community, including profiles of their groundbreaking research, snapshots of their academic successes, and an inside look at their training, with images of their passions and families and friends that support them and provide a balance to their intellectual pursuits. Welcome to the Graduate School.
Thank you so much for joining us for Notre Dame Day. Back to you in the studio, Gary.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine. And we're back in the studios here in our little interview section. And I'm pleased to welcome Notre Dame's Vice President and CIO, Chief Investment Officer, Scott Malpass. And Scott, thanks very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Great to be here.
I understand you were recruited to play football, but not by Notre Dame.
Well, I was. I played high school football, and actually Jackie Sherrill at Pitt and Joe Paterno at Penn State called on me at Erie McDowell. But they liked my film, and then they saw me, and they thought, well, maybe he's not quite big enough for us, so I came to Notre Dame instead.
Well, what brought you to Notre Dame, if not football? As you say, Notre Dame didn't recruit you for that, so what was it?
You know, I had a family member graduate in the 70s, and I was about 12 years old. And when you see this campus, the sacramental vision of it, you know, it just looks like a place you want to go to college. Yeah. And I had a chance during my uncle's commencement to tour the campus, and I got hooked immediately. And so for many years, I wanted to come back and go to school here.
Sure.
So I was fortunate to be able to do that.
What hall did you live in?
I lived in Flanner Hall.
Flanner?
Coached the inter-hall football team. Was co-athletic commissioner of the dorm with my roommate, Mike Donovan, who also works at Notre Dame in our office. So we're very fortunate.
So you actually got to play football in pads anyway.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Now,
It was great.
Planter is what Father Michelli over at Kavanaugh, where I lived, used to call the heathen towers, just because they were so new and so different, and they actually
Right.
had elevators and things like that. But anyway, you survived that.
We survived it. We had a great dorm spirit. We had great rectors, and we had a wonderful time. I lived there 4 years.
Yep. And you've gone on now, of course, you're Chief Investment Officer for Notre Dame. So let's talk about that a little bit. Notre Dame has done very, very well in its investments over the last, say, 20 years or so. And in that period, there have been a couple of really horrible bear markets. There was a dot-com bust back in 1999. There was the financial crisis and the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008. A lot of colleges with large endowments lost an awful lot of money. Notre Dame lost some, but you actually came out of it in fairly good shape. So tell me how you did that.
Well, I'm very proud of our team, our investment committee of our board that Jay Jordan chairs, has chaired for 20 years. Great advisors and guidance. We have great partners. We don't stretch. We don't over leverage. Very fundamental value investors. So, in that kind of market, everybody's going to get hit. But our partners did a fabulous job. And we were able to continue to spend from the endowment at the levels we were pre-crisis. Didn't have to cut faculty and staff or programs. So, it was a tough period. But you're right. There have been crises. Every few years there's a crisis in the markets. That was a particularly big one.
It was.
But we know in the 90s there were emerging markets crises. You mentioned the tech bubble. That was obviously very difficult. That was very sector specific, but very difficult. But there's always going to be something that you have to worry about in investing.
Sure. And, for everybody out there, there's always that old mantra that you just got to be in it, leave it, don't look at it, just stay with it and never change it. But, you've done some things to really sort of protect yourself and protect the university from these kinds of things. And so do you take a purely bottom-up, just looking at specific companies, or do you look from the top down and say, hey, there's a problem out there in the bigger economy? Well,
we look at both. We are more bottom-up, though. And we're just fortunate we get to partner with the very best minds in the world who manage money. We have over 100 investment partners. We have a long time horizon, which is a real advantage. So we can lock up some of our capital in funds, like in venture capital or private equity or real estate, where you can get a premium over the market. We don't need to spend the whole fund every year, so we can put some of it away over 10, 20 years.
So you're in a little better position than most investors that are out there.
We don't have to be quite as liquid as most investors.
So which is more important, Scott, not losing money or making money?
Well, they're both important, and you have to have balance. If there's one thing that I tell investors is be diversified, have balance, and you'll do as well as anybody as long as you don't market time and stick with it. It's sad sometimes you see people go out of the market right at the bottom and come back in right at the top, and the individuals do that a lot with their money, and I'm trying to always educate people not to do that.
It's the old buy high, sell low. That's the big problem.
Exactly.
Right? You want to do it the other way around. But you almost have to be inverse emotional to do that. So when things are flying high and the market's up,
no, that's right.
Now.
No, when things are down, people are afraid to buy, but that's when you have to buy. And so you have to be a bit of a contrarian. You have to look at valuation and buy when they're down. That's hard sometimes for people to do. And I think we do that pretty well. We have great partners who help us do that. They're often calling capital right after a big collapse, so they can buy lower. And that's a great discipline. We're very disciplined how we manage the money.
Tell me about the Notre Dame endowment now. Is it in good shape? How large is it? Does it have to be bigger? Where do we stand right now?
It's in great shape. We're about $9.2 billion in our endowment pool.
How does that compare with other?
12th largest endowment in the country, largest at a Catholic university. There are actually over 5,000 endowments in the pool. We manage it as one pool, but they support financial aid and our talented faculty, endowed professorships, student life. Really all aspects of campus are funded by endowments. It's about 30% of the operating budget, endowment spending.
Well, you've done a terrific job. I mean, you've become sort of this almost legendary status, and I say you collectively, you and your staff have done such a fine job of being stewards of the university's finances. I know that we really appreciate it. I speak on behalf of a lot of alums who are out there who really appreciate the job that you've done. My producer, though, has written in a little question here at the bottom of the sheet that says, can you give me a stock tip?
Well, I don't give stock tips. That's dangerous. But stay in it for the long term.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Be in it to win it, right?
That's exactly. Right. Thanks, Gary.
Scott, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Done a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And we're going to change it up here a little bit. We want to toss it over to Matt McCurdy, who is live at the Notre Dame Day performance stage. And Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Gary. I'm here with Project Fresh, one of Notre Dame's student-run dance crews. Jasmine, how would you describe your group's dance style?
We're a hip-hop dance group, so we do a lot of choreography. We do breakdancing, we do popping, locking, and a lot of other styles.
And how often do you perform around campus at Notre Dame?
We do about 2 big performances a semester, and we do a couple other little ones. And then at the end of the year, we have our own big show.
Awesome. Well, let's see what you got.
All right.
I can't wait till I get you on the floor, good looking. Hey, going hot, so hot, just like an oven. And I'll burn myself, I just had to touch it. But it's so fine, and it's all mine. Hey, baby, and we don't mind all the watching. Hi, 'cause if they study close, real close, they might learn something. She ain't nothing but a little doozy when she does it. She's so fly tonight.
I got enough to go around, and the thought takes place uptown. I grew up on the sidewalk while on street talk, and then taught the whole New York. I go to Queens for Queens to get the food from Brooklyn. They pony in Manhattan and never been took it. Go uptown to the Bronx and boogie down, get strong on the island, recoup and lay around. Time to build my juice back up, pop stack up. Suckers get smacked up, don't doubt the clout. You know what I'm about. Knocking these off, knocking them out, shaking them up, waking them up, breaking them up, breaking them up.
Let's give it up for Notre Dame's own Project Fresh. Thanks for performing, guys. That was awesome. Jack, back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much. And folks, you are really watching history right now. Never before has a college or university ever broadcast live for 29 straight hours on the internet. But when you're at a place like Notre Dame, it's easy to do because Notre Dame has so many great stories to tell. And we have another one right now. We're going to introduce you to a member of the graduate school via Skype. Michael Planner is calling in all the way from the border of France and Switzerland. He's at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, known as CERN. Michael, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good.
It's got to be the middle of the night, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit tired. It's 3:18 right now. I was actually, when the call came in, I was still sleeping. But anyway, I'm awake now.
Well, but that's intelligence to get as much sleep as you possibly could. And I know when you're in Europe and dealing with the U.S., you have to do that a lot. But give me an idea, what exactly are you studying?
Well, I'm studying high energy physics, and I work on one of the experiments at the Large Hadron Collider. And so we're looking for new particles. You may have heard about the Higgs boson, or a particle that looks like the Higgs boson anyway, that was discovered in July 2012. And so that's something that we've already done, and we're still looking to see if there's anything new and more exciting at the LHC.
Now, how did Notre Dame connect you with this research?
Well, there are several professors at the University of Notre Dame who work for the experiment, the compact muon solenoid at the LHC. And so they have a few graduate students that get to come here sort of every year. It depends. Right now, the LHC is on a shutdown while we prepare and improve for the next running to see if we can find more exciting things. And anyway, so we have a team of very good physics professors and a team of very good physics grad students and postdocs who are working at the LHC either in person or remotely from Notre Dame.
Can you explain in layman's terms what the Large Hadron Collider does? Is it above or below ground?
Right. So the Large Hadron Collider is about 100 meters underground. It varies a little bit because the ground is actually not level around here. And so the Large Hadron Collider is nearly level with respect to the gravitational field. But we're close to a mountain range, so one side is deeper than the other. But basically, it collides protons at very high energies. And so these are very, very small things, much smaller than I could show with my fingers. But and we have a lot of them going around in a circle at once, something like 10 to the 13th, if you're familiar with scientific or exponential notation, scientific notation. And we accelerate them up to energies of currently 8 TeV. And after this shutdown is done, we should be able to go up to 13 tera electron volts, which is, well, it's actually a very low energy macroscopically, but since we have 10 to the 13th of these particles, it ends up being something equivalent to the energy of a freight train going at 40 miles an hour. And then these protons collide together, and we look to see what comes out. And by doing that, we can search for new particles and probe the fundamental nature of reality, basically, see what makes up the universe.
Now, is the collider really 17 miles around?
Yes. So I normally don't hear it as 17 miles around because it's in Europe, so they always speak in kilometers. But yeah, it is 17 miles around. And in fact, since it's underground, there are actually several French cities that are on top and sort of in the middle of this detector. It's just buried underground. And there's the main site where I work every day in Switzerland, directly above sort of one part of the LHC. And then, 12 miles away on the other side of the LHC is where the detector that I work for actually is underground as well, in a French town. Most of the LHC is in France.
I am certainly by no means an expert in this area, but I do know that this particular facility is unique in the world of science. What does it say about Notre Dame that Notre Dame is so closely connected to this facility in CERN?
Yeah. So Notre Dame and many other U.S. and international institutions all work together very closely because the technical and logistical requirements to do this kind of science are so immense that you basically need to have as many people working on it as possible with all kinds of expertise. And so, we have the detector that I work on. I work on also I do some hardware work as well as actual data analysis. And I work on a smaller piece of the detector. But we have components in there that were made by Russians and Chinese and U.S. universities as well, and we all had to work together to manage this. And Notre Dame is very heavily involved, and I think does a great job of communicating with other people and getting people interested and excited in physics and science in general.
What do you hope to do when you complete your graduate studies?
Yeah, so that's a good question. You'd think that I would have that completely decided by now, but we'll see what the end of this brings to me. I do really like working at the Large Hadron Collider, so I may try to continue on to get a postdoctoral position in high energy physics, which would probably keep me working in France and Switzerland. I also a lot of the people who graduated from Notre Dame in high energy physics have gone into sort of big data science. So that's something that I'm thinking about, working for a company like Google or Amazon to sort of analyze these mountains of data that they have on their clients is something that's very interesting to me, and I think would be a fun challenge.
Well, Michael, I have no doubt that regardless, whatever you decide to do, you're going to be very successful. We thank you for getting up in the middle of the night over there in Switzerland to spend a few minutes with us. And folks watching you all around the world in virtually every time zone, so there are some others watching you now who are also watching you in the middle of the night. Michael, thanks again.
All right, thank you.
All right, folks, as you know, we began this broadcast last night, Sunday night at 6:42, and we will continue to broadcast live tonight from here in La Fortune until midnight tonight. But right now, we're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back.
I think you need to come out to Roars. The atmosphere is fantastic. And the selection of drinks are outstanding. Great food, great drinks, great atmosphere. I'll see you there.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Gary Sieber, and I'm joined now on the sofa set here by a couple of graduate students. We have Victoria Lamb and Ann Martin. Victoria and Ann, thanks very much for joining us, and we appreciate it. Now, both of you are working toward graduate degrees, doctorates, I assume, right?
Yes.
And so, Ann, first tell us what you're working in.
So I'm in mechanical engineering. My research is focused on figuring out how to model the way humans walk, and then the goal is to be able to take these models and apply it to amputees to be able to design better lower limb prostheses.
Sure, and this is a subject that we're hearing so much about these days. A lot of veterans coming back with war injuries, and even the Boston Marathon bombing, a lot of things.
Right.
So people are needing these kinds of things. You're developing better and better models of how people actually walk so you can design these prosthetic devices. Fascinating.
Right.
So what got you interested in that?
I guess originally I wasn't so much interested in biomechanics. I liked the dynamics part of mechanical engineering. And when I came here, my advisor had an idea for a project to improve the design of prostheses. But it turns out that there really aren't appropriate models of normal, healthy human walking. So I've actually spent quite a bit of time figuring out how we can develop the model of normal human walking.
And how do you do that? We see from time to time on TV, they put sort of like lights and things on people's legs and have them walk, and somehow this is all computer modeled, is that?
So kind of what I'm doing is I was using the data that they collected using those motion capture systems. Mm-hmm. But my model was based on a model that was originally developed for robots. But there are a couple of things robots don't have that humans have. One of them is feet. And if you have feet, it turns out you can save about 50% of energy. So I put feet into the model, and that required some fairly substantial mathematical changes. And then I also determined, basically when you walk, there's like a gazillion different ways you could move. But essentially every single human moves exactly the same. So that means mathematically, there's some sort of an objective function you can use in an optimization that will predict the way a human's going to move.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So have you actually developed the materials or are you just designing them on the computer for these prosthetic devices?
So right now I'm just working on transitioning from my model of normal human walking to be able to predict the way an amputee is going to walk.
Okay.
And then once I have that model that can predict the amputee walking, then I can start changing basically the prosthesis design and say, oh, this one requires more energy, this one requires less energy, and say, which one's better.
So if I may use the old metaphor, you have to take small steps,
right,
so to speak, to get there. Victoria, let me turn to you here for a second. And you're in biology, I understand. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you're doing in research right now.
Well, I'm in Robert Schultz's lab, and our lab focuses on blood cell development or hematopoiesis. The area that I focus on is the niche, the stem cell niche that maintains stem cells as stem cells, and we focus primarily on the blood. So aberrant regulation or misregulation of the niche is known to cause blood malignancies and overproliferative disorders, multiple myeloma in humans, and leukemia.
Yeah, and this is really absolutely essential type of research, and it's very fundamental, basic research to develop a wider picture of how these things progress, and maybe someday, hopefully, what we can do about it. Is that right?
Yes, yes. You're right, it is very basic research. I'm working on the genetics of it, and we actually use Drosophila melanogaster as our model system. And for those who don't know, that is the fruit fly. And usually when I tell people about my research, they're like, who cares if a fruit fly gets cancer or not? But actually, nearly 75% of human disease-causing genes are thought to have functional homologs in Drosophila. And indeed, we found that a lot of the genes responsible for initiation and progression of cancer in humans were first discovered in Drosophila.
So it makes perfect sense to study fruit flies in order to hopefully someday find ways to benefit human beings.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Now, I know that you also wanted to talk about something that you've become involved in, which really, I think, is very indicative of Notre Dame's commitment to the community. Tell us about something called CCC. What does that stand for, and how did you get involved?
Yes, so CCC stands for Camping, Climbing, and Cameras, and it's a program that I developed last semester that engages youth from urban areas in the outdoors in 3 ways, and that is education, ecology, and wilderness preservation, nature photography, and also outdoor recreation, which includes hiking, rock climbing, camping, kayaking, and canoeing. And we worked with youth from the local South Bend community, mainly from the Robinson Community Learning Center and La Casa de Amistad, 5th grade to high school, and we paired them with undergraduates at Notre Dame, which served as their mentors for the 6-week period.
And were you an avid outdoors person? I mean, is that how you kind of came up with this, or did someone say, oh, hey, Victoria, you should develop a program like this? How did it come about?
Well, I got to experience a lot of things that we had in the program, like ecological research, rock climbing, learning to rock climb outdoors and indoors, through actually our facilities here at Rockney. And it made a really positive impact in my life, and I just wanted to share that with a youth in our community, and especially to make that accessible to them financially. So actually our program was free of charge to all the kids.
Sure. And you were mentioning was there a workshop or something where they suggested more of a community involvement that really kind of inspired you to begin with?
Well, I was inspired by a climbing program out in California, where I'm from, that works with kids from the Tenderloin, which is kind of the more lower income area of San Francisco, and they take kids out into the wilderness in California.
Well, Victoria, thanks very much. Very interesting. And thank you. I mean, you're both doing such fascinating work. We really appreciate it. And thanks for joining us here tonight on Notre Dame Day. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll be right back.
Sorens at Morrison, offering a distinctive blend of classic elegance with excellent service, an exceptional wine list, and inspired cuisine, uniquely and creatively presented, all prepared with fresh local ingredients. For fine dining, choose Sorens at Morrison on the Notre Dame campus. For reservations, call 574-631-2020 or reserve online, sorensrestaurant.com.
We are back here with a very special guest. I'm happy to welcome to our anchor desk. We've elevated you to anchor now, Notre Dame linebacker Joe Schmidt. He's going to be a member of the class of 2015. Your story pretty well known, quote-unquote walk-on, but he's not your normal walk-on. He was preferred to begin with, and now you've earned a scholarship. And I met your dad, Blue Gold Weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I love this story, and I love to start with it. But take us through how you told your dad that you had a full-ride Notre Dame scholarship.
Well, actually, it was a really early morning this past June. We had just gotten back for summer workouts, and Coach Kelly called a really early morning meeting on a Friday. And I told my dad the night before, hey, you might be getting a good call from me about 5:30. Just if you do, answer it. I didn't tell him anything else. So I actually went to the meeting, and about 20 minutes before the meeting, Chad Plunder, our operations guy, comes up to me and says, "Hey Joe, like Coach Kelly wants you in his office." So I said, it's gonna be really good or really bad. And so I went up to Coach Kelly's office, and sure enough, it was, "Hey Joe, you've done a great job. You've earned a scholarship." So I went in. Had a great, he sold the whole team, which was really cool. But the coolest part was going and telling my dad. So I went right out of that meeting, I called him, and he's asleep still. And he pulls off his, he answers the phone, he pulls off this Darth Vader breathing sleep apnea mask and says, he goes, "Hello," I'm like, "Hey Dad, it's Joe." He's like, "What are you doing calling me?" And I'm like, "Well Dad, how would you like to save $250,000 over the next, 3 or 4 years?" He said, "That's great, Joe. How are we going to do that?" It's kind of fresh, right? He's awake. I was like, "Well, they got these things called scholarships." And so he starts crying. My mom starts crying. It was a pretty cool experience.
What was the reaction of your teammates when they found out?
It was actually awesome. I got a hug from, I think, about 100 guys that day. And just, how everybody kind of was so, encouraging and just, loving. It was a great brother atmosphere. So.
Now, but you came here with the intention of earning playing time and the goal of earning substantial playing time. I'm sure there were other options for you. I know there were other options for you where you would have played right off the bat. Why'd you choose Notre Dame?
There's something about Notre Dame. I was bitten by the bug really early. My sister and my brother-in-law were Domers. Both played sports here. And I fell in love with the university really early. Me and my dad used to watch football games together on Saturdays, and we'd have the roster in front of us, and we knew the stories of the guys, and it was just something that we really appreciated. And then once I came here and I saw the people, it was a really special thing, and I could understand that there's something about the Notre Dame community. There's something about the Notre Dame person that's just cut above everyone, in terms of giving back and the service and things like that. So that's what really attracted me to Notre Dame.
Now, I do get the opportunity to watch spring practice, and everybody over in the Goog and the staff, there is no official depth chart.
Right.
So I'm not saying there's an official depth chart, but it's clear at the end of spring practice, you were the #1 middle linebacker. And I was very impressed, not just with your execution, but the middle linebacker in this setup. You're the quarterback. You're getting people in the right place. You're making sure people in the right coverage. That's going to be a pretty heady experience for you.
Yes and no. That's how I like to play the game, though. I'm an intellectual player. I like to think about the game in the big picture, how the pieces all fit together. If the safety moves here, how does that affect the linebacker? If the defensive line are making a stunt, how does that affect the linebacker's fits, the safety's fits? So understanding how that all fits together, and then once you see that, you can put people in the right place to make the right plays and be more productive. So when I think about that, it's an opportunity for us to be more successful. So that's a really exciting thing for me, and it's something that I've embraced with this scheme. So I think that this is something that I think it's going to be a big asset for us in the coming season.
Okay. Now, certainly, Brian Kelly, I've learned, doesn't throw around compliments. And I know I mentioned this to you. I don't know if you've seen the press conference yet, but where he said, in this area of elite, you got to understand, Notre Dame football is made up of elite athletes, that you might have some physical limitations in comparison to some of your teammates. But he said you more than make up for that in your football acumen. What does that mean to you?
I take it as a compliment. I actually didn't see the press conference. But I take it as a compliment, and if someone's telling me that I'm overachieving in that regard, I'm happy about that. All I care about is working hard, doing everything I can to get the most out of my abilities, the most out of my my mental abilities, my physical abilities. But that's a compliment for me, and thanks, Coach.
Okay, now I've made the focus on you, and this is not what this interview is supposed to be about. You are also, and even before you got the scholarship, very involved in a program called Uplifting Athletes. Tell me what that's about.
So Uplifting Athletes was started when I was coming out of my freshman year. I was approached by an older walk-on, actually Nick Lazinski, and the president of Uplifting Athletes, Scott Shirley, and we talked about maybe bringing a chapter of Uplifting Athletes in Notre Dame. So what is Uplifting Athletes? Basically, we use college football's players, unique platform. We have thousands of followers on Twitter. And people are always looking at us for news and such. So we use that to raise money and awareness for rare diseases. So we actually met Sam Grew a few years ago. Sam Grew is a local teenager from Mishawaka area. And Sam and I and a bunch of guys in the team, we became really close. But Sam had osteosarcoma, which is a rare form of bone cancer that affects mainly children. So they actually had to amputate his leg from basically his quad to his ankle and put his ankle on backwards. And so he's actually beaten the cancer, though. He's cancer-free for about a year now, which is awesome. Go Sam. And he's playing basketball and lacrosse. But without raising money for osteosarcoma, treatments like this can't happen. So we're really dedicated to having events like we're having a bowling event this Saturday for Uplifting Athletes at Strikes and Spares in Mishawaka, or in South Bend rather, sorry. It's from 10 to 11 and you can register for it. But we're dedicated to do events like that throughout the year to raise money for people like Sam. And it is actually over on Grape Road. You're right, the first time Mishawaka, the dividing lines between the cities are sometimes a little difficult to keep straight. But I know a lot of people are watching this from all around the world. So people can certainly come out and support you that day. But say someone is in Taiwan or Australia, can they help as well? Definitely. By going to upliftingathletes.org and going to our Notre Dame team site, there's actually a link also on my Twitter, Joe Schmidt IV. You can see that there's a link to our actual event website, but you can donate to our chapter, or you can donate to just the Uplifting Athletes cause in general. But to sponsor a lane is $250, and you'll have your name up above the lane, or name of your company up above the lane, or you can just make a general donation. But any and all donations are accepted and encouraged, and we're just looking to have a great day on Saturday, have a great day with fans, the kids, and sign some autographs, and hopefully get some strikes. We'll see how that goes. And we live in a cynical world, and I do know you guys adopted Sam as soon as you met him as a teen, and I know we were under strict orders. More and more people learned about it. No publicity. Right. And even those of us who work for Fighting Irish Digital Media, we were forbidden to even mention it because it wasn't about, look how great we are. It was about this football team trying to lift up a young man who had been dealt a tough break. And now that I know he's in remission as far as I understand. Yes. Is he cancer-free right now? He's cancer-free right now. Okay. Which is awesome. But now that he's there, now you've made it public, and now you're making it a public fundraising effort. Exactly. And I mean, Sam is, when I say Sam is, he really is the man. Like, I've never met a guy that's more a positive, optimistic, just generally just has a happy outlook on life. He's hilarious. He's got a great family, great upbringing. So just being around his family has been a blessing for me and the guys in the team. And it's an amazing experience to be able to help him and his family and other victims of this disease and cancer in general. So it's something that we're really passionate about, and we're so excited for this event on Saturday, and then looking forward to the events this summer and this fall, and really raising a lot of money and awareness for this disease. Joe, thank you as always. Thank you so much. Nice job once again. Thank you. Our live Notre Dame Day programming will continue right after this brief timeout.
An Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
We are the University of Notre Dame.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Gary Sieber, and it's time for us to resume our Residence Hall Smackdown. I know we've been doing a lot of tug-of-war outdoors, but we're going to come indoors, and we're going to have sort of a cerebral tug-of-war. Now, for those of you who have been watching all along, you know what we're going to do. It's this app that Ellen DeGeneres has developed called Heads Up. We'll explain something about it in a moment, but let's meet our contestants. This is going to be Carol Hall versus Fisher O'Hara Grace. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Andrew?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
All right.
Sir.
Andrew Kiss?
That's right.
Tom Plagge. Where are you from?
I'm from Madison, Wisconsin.
Ooh, Madtown. Nice
sir.
bratwurst up there.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff, all right?
Love it.
Andrew, where are you from?
I'm a sophomore. I'm originally from Long Island, New York.
Long Island. Now, you're supposed to say Long Island, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that's sort of our reputation, but I think I've just missed that.
That's the technical pronunciation.
That's right.
I see. Okay. Are you familiar with Heads Up?
Yes.
Okay. For our audience, Tom over there is going to hold up his iPad. It'll have clues in an area that he can't see. Andrew's going to see them, and he's going to try to give clues like old password used to be back in the Alan Ludden days, if you're old enough to remember. Anyway, Andrew's going to give the clues. You get the answers. If he gets it right, he tips it down. If they pass, he tips it up. And the record so far has been 10 correct answers. Can you beat that?
I think so.
All right, we're going to find out. All you have to really do is beat the other hall, right? All right, so here we go. Andrew and Tom, fire away. It's time to play heads up. All right, so you got to turn that way. All right, here comes the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Ready?
Okay, he was a network anchor. He graduated from Notre Dame.
Regis Philbin.
Nope. Less famous, won a lot of Emmys. Pass. Pass. So this is a hall, not P-Dub, but...
Pascaria East.
Correct. Coach of Notre Dame.
Brian Kelly.
Yeah. He graduated here. He played Josiah Bartlett on the West Wing. He's related to Charlie Winning.
Shoot. Sheen. Martin
Yeah,
Sheen.
yeah.
Good one.
Pass. Okay, so the guy you mentioned before, not Phil Donahue.
Regis Philbin.
Yeah. Win one for the...
Jipper.
What's the guy's name?
I'm forgetting the first name right now. Jip.
Yeah.
George Jip.
Close.
Okay, so this hall, it's sort of new. It's south.
Duncan?
No, it's a girls' hall.
Ryan.
Yeah. President of Notre Dame.
Jenkins.
Yeah.
And I think they'll give you that one, right? Okay, so how many did we get? 8? 8, okay, 8. All right, so the record is still 10. Very impressive for 2 reasons. One, your iPad had a little error message on it there, and you were still able to give the clues in spite of that. And Tom, we're going to have you study a little Notre Dame football history because Jip is not going to get it. And when it's like, win one for the Gipper, that would be George Gipp. Yes, but that's okay. Great job, 8 right. Okay, so there's Carroll Hall. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Tom. And we're going to switch places here. And we're going to have our next group come in.
Thanks so much.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Thanks for playing our little game here. I don't look quite like Ellen DeGeneres, but, I'm doing my best impersonation. All right, so we have joining us now, this will be from what, Fisher, Grace, O'Hara? Okay, Fisher, O'Hara, Grace. You're not Fisher.
Craig.
Craig, nice to meet you. What's your last name?
Davila.
Davila. Okay, Craig, where are you from?
California, Anaheim.
Anaheim?
Southern California.
You're not an Angels fan, are you?
No, I'm actually a Dodgers fan.
Dodgers fan, okay, that's right. And you are?
Ron Mao.
Ron, and where are you from?
Cullowhee, North Carolina.
All right, North Carolina. Toward the coast or more inland?
It's west of Asheville, about as far west as you get in the mountains.
All right, very good. All right, and so you're about to uphold the honor and dignity of Fisher O'Hara Grace Hall, right?
That's correct.
All right, so you know how to play heads up?
Pretty much, yeah.
You're familiar with the whole Ellen DeGeneres thing? No. Okay. Have you studied your former Notre Dame football players?
A few coaches, few players.
That will help you. Okay, all right. So you're going to hand the mic off here, and you're going to go ahead and hold that up. It'll give you a countdown here in just a little bit, and then you know the routine. So get ready in 3, 2, 1, and here we go.
Pass. It is a hall. Their mascot is a duck. A pass. The guys' hall.
That limits it.
Pass. Former president. His 2 R's, starting his first name, starting his second last name. Don't know. Pass. Pass.
This could be a first.
Name of the library, the person that the library's named after.
Hey, we got one. Okay.
Pass. Where we are right now.
La Fortune.
Also known as? La Fun, okay.
Pass. Pass twice. Where our church is, what it's called?
Basilica Sacred Heart.
Barely got that in because we had two correct. That was, I'm so happy. Last night, Digger kicked off this whole Notre Dame Day thing.
Yeah.
If he were here right now,
he'd be in trouble.
I hate to think what would be going on.
He'd
but
have
anyway,
a couple jokes for us.
But thank you for participating. You got 2 right, and just stay where you're sitting there for a minute. But it looks like Carroll Hall is the winner this time around. But anyway, we appreciate you trying, and Craig and Ron, thanks very much. Well, that does it for our Heads Up competition. And we're going to toss it over live to our social media center with the update on how things are going here on Notre Dame Day.
Thanks so much. I'm back here with Mark and Jonathan, and they're going to talk you guys through some social media stuff going on. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Before we jump into some of the social media today, we're going to give some big thank yous out. First and foremost, a thank you to everybody involved here with Notre Dame Day, the staff, production team. It takes a lot to get something like this going. But I want to give a special thank you at this hour, particularly to Jack Nolan. Jack came in, volunteered to help us out with this initiative, and spent 10 of the 29 hours at the anchor desk helping us get through Notre Dame Day in such a professional and amazing manner. No way we get it done without you, Jack. Thank you so much for your effort. All right, and from here, I'm going to go to something familiar, the big green button. Don't forget about the big green button. We are trending very positively in the last few hours here, NotreDameDay.nd.edu. Check it out. Press the Give and Vote button. It's the big green button. You'll get your 3 votes. You'll have an opportunity to help different parts of the campus win their share of $250,000. Go right now, NotreDameDay.nd.edu. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jonathan, who's going to walk you through what's going on in social media. Jonathan?
Mark, thank you. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Hope you're having a great Monday evening. We're doing great here on campus. The rain held off for most of the day, as you could see. It was not a good forecast, but we made it. Thanks to every single one of you who's been to NotreDameDay.nd.edu today, who's made a gift, and who has cast their votes for the areas of their Notre Dame experience that mean the most to them. It's been an amazing day. We got a lot of time left here, so make your gift, make it count now, and help us allocate this $250,000 challenge fund. Let's go to social media. LaFortune, since the start of ND Day, we've had more than 10,000 students, staff, faculty, and visitors walk through the doors of LaFortune. This has truly been the epicenter of this global celebration. Big thanks to everyone here at LaFortune, Brian Fermo and his whole team. They've been just tremendous in allowing us, practically full reign of so much of the building. Brian Fermo posted this Vine up of some of the activities happening this evening. Students are studying, getting ready for finals starting this week. Some clips of our live performances, Project Fresh, and some others. It's been a great day, a ton of energy all weekend long, and we really appreciate it so much. Finally, Paul, if you were looking for a shout out, you get your wish. I think it's safe to say this was the best ND Day ever. I think we all concur with that. What do we think, folks? Oh, yeah. All right. Again, thanks to all of you for tuning in. We hope you stick with us. We got a lot of great stuff coming up in our final hours. And now, as always, with the leaderboard, I'll introduce Mickey Kidder. Hi, Mickey.
Hi, Jonathan. Boy, we've had an exciting last hour, haven't we? Lots of energy, lots of activity. Let's give you a quick update of what we've got going on right now. First, on the last hour Residence Hall competition, the Wild Women of Walsh Hall, victorious over Kavanaugh. With the most votes last hour, they won $1,000 of those challenge funds. And currently, we've got a fierce competition going on between Carol and the men of Fisher O'Hara Grace. Carol is currently up. Oh, excuse me, no, it's been a reversal there. Fisher O'Hara Grace is currently up by just 1 vote. So alumni, current students, and parents, get on there and vote for those 2 wonderful residence halls. And Jonathan, what an exciting last hour. Notre Dame family, I'm proud to announce that in that last hour, we surpassed that 3,300 gift count. And equally as exciting, we are approaching $895,000 of support for your most beloved areas of this wonderful university. So get on, as Mark said, look for that big green button, give and vote for Our Ladies University. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, let's see what's coming up this next hour. We got Joe Newman, who is a 101-year-old Notre Dame alumnus. A live performance by the ND Bagpipe Band. A poetry slam live from Legends. The pipe organ performance. And a live performance by Halftime. So see you here for more from Notre Dame Day live at the top of the next hour.